Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tom Baker Show. It is good to be with you. This episode begins an evolution for this show. In the coming weeks and months, you're going to see more variety, more guests, and the transition to a live-to-tape format that will allow you to engage with us through chat and help shape the dialogue with your comments. That's how I started in media, as a live call-in radio host, and I am super excited, honestly, to recreate that interaction and the energy of that interaction with a live audience. If you haven't already, go give us a follow on Facebook and Instagram at Steering Wheel Nation, so you don't miss any announcements about when we're going to go live. We will still be on PowerTube TV every Friday at 8 p.m., all time zones, by the way, on their podcast channel and on their main channel toward the end of the Friday night block following WFO. You can find us 24/7 on our streaming channel on the PowerTube platform and join our various community groups on steeringwheelnation.com for exclusive content and conversation throughout the week. So basically what that means is that this show is going to undergo a change in format to a live to tape, which is actually, with this very episode, even though we're not streaming it live, we are debuting our live to tape format, and it's being recorded that way. And that's going to be a cool thing to keep the energy up. It'll let us bring in more guests and more footage and different voices and all kinds of things to the show. And we're looking forward to that. So with that being said, our special guest today is going to be Ryan Shehan, and Ryan is going to talk about IndyCars, sports cars. He is a rising young racer, and we'll be hearing from him in just a moment. We're going to step aside. Ryan will be back with us right after this. For over 50 years, FHS Superior Synthetic Oil has powered high-performance engines with unbeatable protection and speed. Whether it's drag racing, go-karts, sprint cars, stock cars, or your daily driver, FHS stands for high speed and delivers every time. Their advanced synthetic oils boost your engine's responsiveness, acceleration, and efficiency, giving you the winning edge on every lap. Visit FHSoil.com today to find the right products for your engine. FHSoil.com.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show, and this special episode for us is really the media equivalent of a test and tune. We're debuting some new software that we're working with and the live-to-tape format, and so this is an abbreviated 30-minute edition that is being done just to kind of give everything a run through and make sure that when we start going back to recording full shows a week from now, we will be in good shape with all of the procedure. So with that, we welcome our first guest this week, our only guest on this show, actually. Ryan Shehan has been with us before. We focused heavily on talking with Ryan about his background and his comeback from a life-threatening karting accident several years back. But Ryan is now joining us in a media role where he's going to be one of our insiders, and he will keep us up to date on what's going on in sports cars of all types and also IndyCar and a little bit of F1. So Ryan's going to play a key role going forward with us. We're happy to have you on the show, Ryan. And I have to start right away with you talking a little bit about the Rolex, because we're a couple of weeks obviously away from that having taken place. I thought that race was an unbelievably competitive race across the board in all of the various divisions. But man, Roger Penske, second in a row for him. That team is just dialed in right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Rolex kind of always marks the start of the racing calendar.
That's great.
It's after winter. That's once the Rolex comes around, racing is back. So it always marks the start of the year, and it never disappoints. And like you said, Penske just second in a row, winning the IMSA championship last year. They really don't mess around. Anything Roger Penske is involved with is always running at the highest level.
Yeah, it really is. And I know that as a driver, you've never actually run the Rolex, but I'm curious, now that we have all of this iRacing sim stuff, and I know that there's various iterations where people will do a sort of an online version of it. Have you ever done that? And can you shed any light at all about the mentality of having to sort of be plugged in for 24 hours to be a part of a team and go win something like that?
Yeah, it's something I'll do every year. It's always lots of fun. It's always the first big event of the year, and so it's fun to do with friends. But yeah, it's grueling. Even when you're just sitting at home driving on a sim, it's grueling because long hours, long stints. It's 24 hours of racing, and while you're not in the car for 24 hours, you're wanting to pay attention. You're wanting to always be there in case something happens. So I'm sure it's levels above that in real life, but even just in the sim, it's grueling.
Yeah, I just would think, when you think about driving at night, or overnight, I mean, the body wants to sleep, right? It just amazes me how, especially even a guy like Roger Penske, as old as he is, to be able to stay awake and stay in focus for 24 hours. I know how hard it is, even for me with a long day of kart racing or whatever, to keep on tilt for that long and the concentration going. And I can't imagine what that's like, but it is just so much fun to watch and to see the level of talent, which I thought this year was across the board at an all-time high for the event. I mean, veterans like, your Kubi Kobayashis and the guys that drove for Penske and Taylor and all of that. But even, the younger drivers that are entering now, and you see the occasional NASCAR driver dipping in, I feel like it's sort of the world of motorsports all in one place. You're seeing the best from a lot of different areas. And what is it like to get around Daytona in a car like that, no matter what division, really? But I'm just curious what the mentality is for that race.
Well, like you said, I've never done it myself, so I can only speak from a simulator perspective. But it's you kind of forget that it's a 2.5 mile oval, because once you're on the oval, it just feels like a straightaway because it's easy, flat, barely turning the wheel. And so you're really thinking about the infield, which for an oval, it's a pretty technical infield. And so I think people kind of underestimate it. I think it's maybe easy to kind of find your way around, but to find those last few tenths, I think is a lot more difficult than people give it credit for.
Yeah, I just think it's a crazy event. I look forward to it. I watch as much of it. I try to stay awake every year. I've never made it, but I think I got till 3 or 4 in the morning a couple times is the closest I've ever come. And then I just got to have some sleep. But those guys, I thought there was the competition in every one of those divisions. They were all close at the end. And, everybody pays attention to the big cars, and because let's face it, it's what we're all enthralled with. But even in your smaller divisions, those guys are still running 24 hours and doing the same things. And I feel like when you start the year with a race like that, it basically is like running. I feel like it's like running half a season all at once, on the racetrack. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, people forget that the GTD Pro teams are factory efforts.
Yeah.
Even the LMP2 teams, they're not factory efforts, but you have United, who is run by Zach Brown,
Yep.
and if someone like that is involved, it's a serious operation. So nobody's there just for fun. Even the privateer teams, they're there to win, and a lot of resources and effort has gone into that. And so I think it's a great way to start the year.
It is. And one of the things that has been talked about is the possibility of McLaren actually going with a full sports car effort, and what that might mean for their IndyCar effort, or, I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. And, what would you like to see if who would you put in the car? Who would you like to see running sports, besides yourself, running sports cars for McLaren?
I think it's hard because it's going to take a few years. They're thinking about it. They're very spread out right now with F1, IndyCar, Formula E. They have a GT3 program, but I don't think they have a factory effort.
No, I don't think it is.
I think it's hard to know because you don't want to strip away one of their superstars like a Lando Norris or a Pato O'Ward, but you don't know where they're going to be in a few years. Maybe McLaren is super successful in F1 and Lando wins a few championships and is ready to retire. You just never know. So I think it's hard to call. I think like a dream team would be, maybe a Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, a Pato, even, some of the young guns that they have. Lundgaard is with them now.
Yep.
Siegel, one of them. Siegel has a LMP2 experience, so there's a lot of different options.
Very well,
I think
too, at Daytona.
Absolutely. And he was with United, who is run by Zach Brown, like we said. So he has
I think he's got a win there. Yeah.
Yeah. So prior connection there. So I think it's McLaren. They'll be able to get the top level guys. So I'm not worried about the talent.
Do you see this? Because I feel like the IMSA style of racing as a whole, sports cars and especially IMSA, I feel like that's one of the fastest growing parts of motorsports in the U.S. Do you see that as well? And I'm curious, do you see a trend of teams like McLaren? We see Prema now coming into Indy. Are they looking for additional outlets to put drivers, because you can only, F1's only going to have so many seats? Do you see this as becoming maybe a bit of a trend for some of these F1 outfits to have teams in other types of racing?
Yeah, I think we've seen this already with Ferrari. They put Antonio Giovinazzi in their hypercar program, Robert Schwartzman in their hypercar program, who are two of their reserve drivers. And they came through the F1 Academy. Giovinazzi spent time in F1. Schwartzman never quite made it, but they still stayed in the family. And so I think that that's going to be a really popular avenue, putting Academy drivers there. And even if they don't quite have that F1 caliber, or even if it's just, the wrong time, we've seen that it has to be, perfect time, perfect circumstances to make it to F1. So I think it's going to be a really popular choice for teams like that. We see Ford is coming in 2027 with the hypercar. That they have that Red Bull link. So I could see maybe Red Bull Juniors, or even if Ford wants to start their own driver academy, I could see that, for sure being a big part of it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch. It's been fascinating to see some of those types of trends, and even NASCAR has sort of jumped in a way with their new provisional for elite drivers, so to speak, and they're not allowing any of the current Cup drivers to have access to it. They want to bring in, for Daytona, for example, it's Helio Castroneves. I'm curious. You're more of a road racer than a NASCAR racer. I'm curious what your view on that is, having, that opportunity to see maybe, a Tony Kanaan or somebody from Formula One or whoever in a NASCAR race with that type of a guaranteed starting spot.
I mean, we've seen it in the past, mostly on road courses. Kimi Räikkönen, Kamui Kobayashi have done it in the past. I love to see it. Like you said, I'm not too big into NASCAR, but I'm going to make an effort this year to watch some more races, because I've watched some highlights, and I've watched some races in the past, and they've been really interesting. But I always lose track of the season. It's a race every week is crazy compared to what I'm used to. So I'm going to make an effort this year. But I think it's good for everybody. These drivers from other series get to experience a new car, a new series, new tracks. And NASCAR gets to bring over fans from, say IndyCar, in Castroneves' situation. I think it's great for everybody. And I think the more that you can kind of intertwine, drivers from different series, I think it just kind of brings everybody together, because, there's always the "they only turn left," shtick from road racing fans. And so I think if you can kind of, collaborate a bit and get the fans to like each other a bit more, I think it could be good for everybody.
Well, NASCAR is trying really hard to attract that market, and I think we're seeing that with Mexico City. Talk about moving the Clash to Brazil, maybe as soon as next year. There's just a lot of interest in global expansion, which I'm going to get to later in the show, but it's just fascinating to watch. Let's get to some IndyCar. 2025, first full year with charters. What's the story over there? Fox coming on now. What do you make of the 2025 season? And who do we pay attention to here? There's definitely a lot of drivers in new places for the year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be super exciting this year. Like you said, Fox is coming in, and they've already spent big bucks on Super Bowl commercials. They're bringing Indy Next to network TV. I think it's going to be a really exciting year. We have Prema coming in, like you mentioned.
Yep.
I think it's going to be, super incredible. If you don't watch IndyCar, I would say watch St. Pete. I think it'll be a great event, and I think it's going to be a fantastic year.
Fox spent, according to what I've read, Fox spent $34 million on Super Bowl commercials. That's $9 million more than they spent to buy the rights to broadcast IndyCar, according to what I've read, which is completely fascinating. And I think the commercials that they've done, the driver focus and really pushing the athletes to the fans and trying to let the fans really get to know the athletes, to me, that's something that's been missing from IndyCar forever. And I'm happy to see Fox doing it. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've never really seen promotion like this with IndyCar. Everybody I've spoken to has loved the commercials. I love the commercials. I thought that they were, fun.
Yeah.
Made the drivers feel a lot more human. I think it's all great. I think what Fox is doing is the right thing. I think that, Fox Sports, they know how to promote their talent, their series. They've done it for NASCAR. They've done it for other kinds of sports, and so I think it's what IndyCar needs, because I think it's kind of held itself back in the past by not promoting as well as it could. So I think that this is exactly what it needs, and I'm kind of hoping that is what helps it explode. I mean, because even in the U.S., it's not. NASCAR still beats it. I think even MotoGP internationally beats it. And I think that this could be what kind of brings it up to that next level.
So who are you watching in IndyCar this year? Who stands out to you? I mean, Penske seems to find a way every year, but I'm looking at AJ Foyt Racing with that two-car tandem of David Malukas and Santino Ferrucci as being one of the potentially top young teams and biggest surprises in IndyCar with their technical alliance with Penske. I think those are two of the hottest young drivers in IndyCar right now. What are you seeing?
Well, I mean, like you said, Penske is always dangerous. They have three superstars, and like with like at the Rolex 24, they're very professional. Anything Roger Penske is involved with is going to be at a top level. They're going to operate at the top level that they can, and I think that having those three drivers is it obviously helps them with their results, and I think they just make less mistakes than most others. But Alex Palou is always extremely volatile. He just doesn't make mistakes. He can, if has a fourth place car, he'll finish fourth. Same with Scott Dixon, who has he's always been there. And so I think Chip Ganassi, Scott Dixon, Alex Palou, I think that they're going to be challengers. I think McLaren is always they're the new kids on the block relatively, but Pato O'Ward is always dangerous. And now that they have Christian Lundgaard, who is a race winner, I think it'll be exciting to see what he can do with McLaren. And I don't know how competitive they'll be, but Prema is going to be interesting to watch just to see how they do. They're dangerous in F3, dangerous in F2. Everything they've raced in, really, they win in. So it'll be really cool to see how they do in IndyCar.
Do you think Prema gets a win in 2025?
I could see it. IndyCar is really unpredictable.
Which driver?
That's hard to. I mean, they're both F2 race winners. Both hypercar. I don't think either of them have won in hypercar, but both have raced in hypercar at the top level. I could really see it being either. Maybe giving it to Ilott just because he has experience in IndyCar, but I think I'll give it to Ilott just for that reason. But it could easily be either of them.
Okay. In about a minute, tell us about Shehan Strong and what you got on tap for 25.
Yeah, with Shehan Strong, it's my nonprofit where we're working to inspire youth, specifically disadvantaged youth, to follow their passions, follow their dreams, and using my racing as an example that if you find something you're passionate about and you put the work towards it, then you can make that dream a reality.
So where can fans find information about that and you?
Yeah, RyanShehan.com. They can find all the information they need about me at Ryan Shehan Official on socials. And we're everywhere: Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, anywhere you can think of.
Well, we look forward to having you back on a recurring basis here. We'll get you on around St. Pete. We'll talk about that a little bit, and Indy Next and so forth as the season gets started. That is Ryan Shehan. We're going to be back with a quick little wrap-up with some final thoughts right after this. For over 50 years, FHS Superior Synthetic Oil has powered high-performance engines with unbeatable protection and speed. Whether it's drag racing, go-karts, sprint cars, stock cars, or your daily driver, FHS stands for high speed and delivers every time. Their advanced synthetic oils boost your engine's responsiveness, acceleration, and efficiency, giving you the winning edge on every lap. Visit FHSoil.com today to find the right products for your engine. FHSoil.com.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show. Just enough time for a quick edition of Hot Topics, which is being brought to you on this show by Radical Race Gear. If you're looking for a fire suit or a sublimated crew shirt, Butch Lamb and his team at Radical Race Gear have exactly what you need, and they will take very good care of you. Check them out at radicalracegear.com. NASCAR has been in the news a lot lately for a variety of reasons since the new year dawned. We've had several rules changes. We had the Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium, and now it's time for Daytona weekend. In the midst of this, we get the bombshell from Adam Stern that potentially we could see some sort of an equity sale of part of, at least, NASCAR at some point in the future to private equity firms. Here's my thought on that and my question. What happens if these private equity firms, first of all, if you sell part of it and the current France family retains most control, who's actually in charge? Whose ideas? Where does it go? We're talking about global expansion. We just had what I thought was a highly successful race weekend at the Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium. You brought them back to the history. Went all the way back to the beginning. Now, I thought it was an excellent weekend of racing, really. Saturday night was quite aggressive. Sunday, less so. Chase Elliott kind of dominated the race, but lots of passing, not a ton of equipment torn up. And again, that tie-in to the very beginnings of the sport back in the late 40s. Now we find out NASCAR is at least toying with the idea of taking this to Brazil, where there's no history. So what does that mean? What does this whole initiative for global expansion, does this hurt NASCAR's brand in the USA if it starts to become a more global brand? And depending on the depth of that and how many races, because you'd think, well, it's a 38-week season. You only got so much time on the calendar. So for every race you go and run somewhere else, you're taking it away from the USA. How does the U.S. fan base react to this? The idea was floated out there by Adam Stern, saying that it has been talked about. And in fact, Steve Phelps has been quoted as talking about the eventual inclusion or introductions of private equity firms into NASCAR. But as we go into Daytona weekend, I feel like between all of those things and the lawsuit, we have more questions now going into the biggest weekend of the year than we have answers. It's going to be fascinating to watch where a lot of this goes. In the meantime, let's just talk about some racing, shall we? Daytona 500 coming up Sunday. You've got, obviously, the Xfinity race, the truck race, the ARCA race. Everything happening. Everything starts on Wednesday with qualifying. You've got a lot of stuff going on at Daytona, and, of course, a whole flood of short tracks still running during Florida Speed Weeks. As we go into our Super Bowl weekend for NASCAR, I'm going to be really watching to see what gets talked about and what happens in the press conferences and such about the potential sale, about global expansion. I want to hear from the drivers, and I want to see where this goes with the fan base. But this could be a very interesting year for NASCAR overall. Quick picks. Friday night, Ben Rhodes. Saturday, I'm going to go with Justin Allgaier. And on Sunday, I'm going to pick a bit of a surprise, perhaps, if there can be such a thing at the 500. Ty Gibbs gets his first Daytona 500 victory on Sunday. you just basically put all the numbers in a hat and draw one out, right? And hope that the driver misses the big wreck and is around at the end to challenge for the win. That's kind of what Daytona has become now, but it's still the Super Bowl. Okay, that wraps it up for this edition of the Tom Baker Show. We hope you enjoy the Daytona 500 and all that weekend is. Stay with SteeringWheelNation.com and, of course, PowerTube TV on Friday nights for more great content. Until next time, I'm Tom Baker. Thanks for watching.